Hello friends, Jeff Ellis Worldwide here. We're in my studio inside of East West Studios in Hollywood, California. You may know me from working on projects with Frank Ocean, Uchis, Doja Cat, Joji. And today I'm going to be going through a song. And what I did, and something I do often to try to keep my sounds fresh and ever evolve as a mixer, is to work on making songs myself with plugins that I'm not used to using. And that way I can explore what's new, what's cool, see what I like and what I don't like. If I don't constantly make new songs using new plugins, my sound can cease to evolve. I got my friend Keon Bell together with me. He's a rapper and we made a new song. So this is me going through that session with you. And I hope you enjoy yourself. I hope you learn something that, will shake you out of your old patterns and have you trying something new. All right, so let's take a look at what I did here on the vocals. I'm gonna play a little bit of the second verse of this song.
Born raised probably down sauce and wonder what I guess I'm Kenny Clark. And famous bitches DM me too often. Might sell TMZ my login.
So let's take a look at the vocal effects that I used in this song. We went crazy with them. And by the way, you can find all these FX chains as presets in Wave Studioverse. Just type Jeff Ellis. When I'm setting vocal effects, I'm thinking about it as like a character, right? So how do we build this character? I wanted to have a vocal aesthetic that matches we're kind of like going through a party like this. And, we probably, most of us have been there where we just think we're the coolest person in the room. And like, if you're like zoomed out as a sober person, there's like, this guy's an idiot. And to do that, we did some interesting stuff. So I'm going to play a little bit right now of the verse and then I'll play a little bit of the chorus. And I'm going to mute all the effects so you can kind of see what it's doing. And you can decide if it's making it feel more unhinged or not.
Born raised probably down sauce and wonder what I guess I'm Kenny Clark. And famous bitches DM me too often. Might sell TMZ my login. Tell her that I love her, never call her. Hennessy been clouding up my conscience. Pockets fat, I'm talking Action Bronson. I need a shot. I might need insurance like a drop. Still fake. Late night, I'm turned up. Still fake. I'm on too much drugs. Throw that back till you bust.
Especially in the chorus, I'm using this delay that has this big phaser on it to kind of, move the delay into the dark regions of the stereo field, which is what I call, it's like when you pan all the way to the right or all the way to the left, you hit a wall, but you can use flangers and phasers and stuff and choruses to extend beyond the speakers and kind of wrap it around your head. And I call that area the dark region. So listen how doing that in this chorus kind of gives you a sense of you're kind of like a little bit drunk.
Still fake. Late night, I'm turned up. Still fake. I'm on too much drugs. Throw that back till you bust. Turned up.
So this is not a new plugin. I've been using this for years. Manny Delay is so sick. This phaser knob here is what I use to get into those dark regions I was talking about. It's wild. Like, listen to this.
Late night, I'm turned up. I'm on too much drugs. Throw that back till you bust. Turned up.
All right, there's gonna be some nerd watching this video being like, that's not gonna be mono compatible. Don't be that person, please. Have fun with your mixes. Don't worry about all that stuff. Just phase things like crazy if you wanna have a song where you sound super drunk. Don't be worrying about how some person's gonna hear this song on like some mono speaker somewhere. It's like, just, mono's dead. Move on with your lives, please. Thank you. Another crazy thing that we did, which I've never done before, I wanted to start, I heard about Kaleidoscope is a plugin I never used before. And we did something completely crazy with the vocal, which I'm gonna show you now.
Sauce and wonder what I guess I'm Kenny Clark. And famous bitches DM me too often. Might sell TMZ my login. Tell her that I love her, never call her. Hennessy been clouded.
Right? I bet you didn't notice that. It's very, very subtly in there. But let me show you what happens when I mute it.
Sauce and wonder what I guess I'm Kenny Clark. And famous bitches DM me too often. Might sell TMZ my login. Tell her that I love her, never call her. Hennessy been clouding up my conscience. Pockets fat, I'm talking.
What it's almost doing is acting like a little colorful delay or reverb almost. And Honestly, I pulled this up and I don't know what I did. I'm gonna save these settings. There's some things creating this. This is the first time I ever opened this plugin. I just started moving things and all of a sudden I heard pure craziness. And I'm like, could I turn that into some sort of like slap delay or something like that? So I used H delay here as just a method to kind of turn it into a delay. So it's like a little 30-second note delay. So the signal's going into kaleidoscope and then getting delayed by 30-second note. So this like colorful, crazy delay thing isn't hitting right when the vocal hits. It's delayed back a little bit. And that way we're not losing any kind of like focus on the vocal. And then again, did I do something with center? Yeah, again, what I did is I just removed all the center out of it. So we're only hearing this weird, almost I want to call it drunken thoughts sound in the sides.
Sauce and wonder what I guess I'm Kenny Loft. And famous bitches DM me too often. Might sell TMZ my login. Tell her that I love her, never call her. Hennessy been clouding up my conscience. Pockets fat, I'm talking Action Bronson. I need a shot. I might need insurance like a.
Obviously, it doesn't sound good loud, but just as a subtle little finesse, I loved what it did. It gives it just this little character.
Sauce and wonder what I guess I'm Kenny Loft. And famous bitches DM me too often. Might sell TMZ my login. Tell her that I love her, never call her. Hennessy been.
I don't see a lot of rap songs using spring reverb. I don't know why. It's awesome. I've been using Magma Springs a lot. For years, I couldn't find a spring reverb plugin that I liked the way that it sounded. I don't know if it's like super hard to model spring reverb, but this one just, it's what I've been waiting for a long time. It seems like anything that has magma written in it, I like. So I don't know what that's about. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of different styles.
Sauce and wonder what I guess I'm Kenny Loft. And famous bitches DM me too often. Might sell TMZ my login. Tell her that I love her, never call.
I use classic a lot. It actually sounds pretty good in the song. Maybe I'll switch to this.
Sauce and wonder what I guess I'm Kenny Loft. And famous bitches DM me too often. Might sell TMZ my.
The trick to all this stuff is keeping it pretty short and having enough pre-delay so you can hear the vocal performance before the reverb hits. Otherwise, it can just kind of get lost.
Sauce and wonder what I guess I'm Kenny Loft. And famous bitches DM me too often. Might sell TMZ my login. Tell her that I love her, never call.
Be wary of using too much reverb in a fast rap song like this. It's just kind of like the pocket of the whole song can fall apart. Now, let me show you what we did in our chorus background vocals. We have this still faded thing going on.
Still faded. Still faded.
This is what the recording sounded like.
Still faded. Still faded. Still faded. Late night, I'm turned up. Still faded.
Retrofy did a really great job of. I wanted to put the background vocals in the same, world as sounding faded, basically. There's nothing that says you can't try to mix your mixing aesthetic with what the lyrics are saying. I do that all the time. So if the song's talking about being faded, I'm going to make it sound like you're faded listening to it. I'm going to turn Retrofy on and off as I go down.
Turned up. Late night, I'm turned up. Sub for the first night fuck. You don't put your hand up.
This is probably the same settings that I use in other vocals. It just sounded good, so I dragged it down to these background vocals, and then I shaped them with Retrofy. I would say like Retrofy is the sound of this production in a lot of ways. All right, so another thing that's happening throughout the entire song are just these ad-libs that are swirling around and just, adding to the unhinged nature of the production. I'm just gonna mute them all for a second so you can see what they're doing.
Late night, still sliding on red 3 days. She's still trying somebody like me. You might find them when the birds swimming and the pigs flying. So fine, I sell a dime, but dream she ain't.
If you're listening to these on headphones or whatever, all these kind of ad-libby things, they're not supposed to really draw much attention, but they're swirling around in your head, and it's trying to add to that kind of like I'm drunk aesthetic that I was going for. We achieved that by using a few different things. Brower motion is just swirling everything.
Go
And then since I, fell in love with Kaleidoscope working on this song, I just slapped this on here at some preset. And then Here is a new plugin that I've never seen in any session sent to me to mix, but I'm using it all the time. It's called Gemstones, and what it is, it's just one plugin that has a whole bunch of cool different effects modules in it that are doing unique things that I've never seen before. In this instance, this module in Gemstones is doing kind of the we're in a hallway aesthetic. Like you can see this hallway here, and that's exactly what it sounds like. There's a whole bunch of other weird stuff in here too that you should definitely dig into when you get a chance. But for this one, I went with The Neighbor and just did this kind of hallway thing. But let me give you an example of what that sounds like. I might have just changed the settings or whatever, but it doesn't matter. We can go back.
Get my bag. Fuck. Try.
So without this hallway effect, this swirling vocal thing is going to draw too much attention because it makes it more dry and in your face, but we're just going to put it in the little hallway here, and that's going to just kind of drop it back into the murky areas of the track, and you can focus on the vocal, but there's this weird ominous thing kind of swirling around you.
They spend all day trying to get my bag right. Late night, still sliding on red 3 days. She still trying somebody like me. You might find her when the birds swimming and the pigs flying. So fine, I sell a dime per dream. She ain't got a dime, but she still buy it. All mine to find this. Waist going to my chick a spice. Stop playing, right? Wake up, hit the bank and make the pop.
So now I'm going to take us through the instrumental of this song. I made this with a lot of loops and stuff like that, and I wanted to use a bunch of new Waves plugins that I haven't used before to kind of give it its own unique identity so it doesn't sound like a bunch of splice loops, just like everybody else's vibe. So there's some stuff that I haven't been using that I'm definitely going to be using now that was really transformative for the beat in this song. So I'm going to mute the vocals and just play a little bit of the beat we have going here. The main sample for this song is just some random snippet of a loop I found somewhere. This is what it sounded like, the loop. A new plugin that I'm in love with is Retrofy. I've been using this on everything lately. It's got this kind of like, it's almost like a cheesy reverb aesthetic, but it's so good. In the same way we used to use Deverb because it was like this like old kind of digitally sounding reverb. I kind of get the same vibe of this, but lo-fi here is completely transforming the sound of this sample and kind of, you know, putting it in a completely different world so it doesn't sound like some internet loop. So check this out. I love the spring reverb that Retrofy uses. It's got such a weird grainy thing that I love. I've been using it on everything. The plate sounds cool too. It's just so metallic and bizarre. I went with the spring on this song, but it's cool because you can kind of massage it in. And then this device setting can kind of just, you know, give it another style filtering you might not have in your arsenal. So listen to how this sounds. Like, the song could have been this, like, you know? That's pretty cool. This one cuts through really well. I ended up going with the 80s because I just didn't want to draw too much attention to the sample in the song because I want to keep the attention in the vocal. That's Retrofy. There's another sound in this song that's going throughout the song that almost sounds like a monk chanting. It was like a snare drum, right? Okay. But I was just playing with Retrofy, and then what ended up happening was it did this thing all of a sudden where all of a sudden, to me, it sounded like this chant noise. Without. Originally, I was experimenting and having a snare drum in this beat, but when I was going through Retrofy, I just got that monk sound. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a little emotional boost moment that happens in the beat. One thing that I like to do is sometimes I'll pull up center and just yank all the center out of a sound. That way, no bit of this kind of sound effect is going through the center where the vocal lives. So by kind of pulling out the center, you wrap this sound around the edges, and it helps the listener kind of connect more with the vocal because these effects aren't right in line with the vocal. So that's what this sounds like. When center's off, I'm just hearing too much in the middle, and I know that's gonna conflict with the vocal too much. So I'm gonna bring the vocal back in for a second.
The shot, I might need insurance like a driver. Got too many bitches on my bumper. I'm a slut, ain't got no moral compass. She want me to beat, I'm knife one. The talking
with center off, that whole effect now is kind of like competing with the vocal that's panned in the middle. With it on, it wraps it around, and it's out of the way of the vocal, and it's easier to connect with the lyrics.
The shot, I might need insurance like a driver. Got too many bitches on my bumper. I'm a slut, ain't got no moral compass. She want me to beat, I'm knife.
All right, this beat is heavily driven by the 808. One of the things about like getting a great 808 bass, sub-bass sound is like you just gotta pick a great sound. If you need too much processing, it's probably not the right sound or the right arrangement for the song. But I wanna show you how during different moments, I'm filtering the 808 differently to kind of give it a sense of, all right, now we're like in a little middle section. This area, it's a little bit more restrained, so it can hit harder in certain moments. So let me show you how I did that. I'm using this Shep's Omni Channel 2, and I'm a huge fan of this. I really like plugins that kind of mimic how a console is laid out because it's like it becomes a Swiss Army knife, so you can just grab different things really quickly. But a lot of times I'll just grab this saturation here and playing around with that and just checking out different types of distortion. I'm using the de-esser here to do just a little side chain with the kick. I think the heavy lifting is being done by the tube channel strip. What I'm doing with this is I'm just rolling off a little bit of the bass because it was just a little bit too boomy. And I know this looks terrifying here. I have a high pass filter on the 808, but don't be scared of that. That doesn't mean like there's no frequencies under 60. It just means a roll off starts to happen there. And sometimes it just kind of, you click the high pass filter and all of a sudden the headroom in the song enables it to be a little louder. The track moves in a certain way that's really nice. It does something with the kick that enables them to work better together. So let's kind of listen to what this is doing.
I need that now. Casamigos turn her to a freak hoe. I can see that now. I need that now. Casamigos turn her to a freak hoe. I can see that now.
So yeah, I'm just shaving off a little bit of volume and a little bit of the low lows that were kind of dragging this song. This is like a really fast song, like rap song, so it's driving really hard. And a lot of times if things get too bassy, it can kind of pull the pocket slower and it just starts plodding along. So shaved off a little bit of bass again with this very basic EQ here. Another option, I could have started distorting things with this, but I didn't feel like I needed to at all. So, in these little breakdown sections, we're using Retrofy on this bass to kind of switch the character of a song. I'm going to show that now.
Casamigos turn her to a freak hoe. I can see that now.
So this is still that same 808 sound, but I'm filtering it with Retrofy to have kind of like a scene change moment to help the arrangement stay interesting. So let's hear how that transitions.
Casamigos turn her to a freak hoe. I can see that now.
So using Retrofy to do that little filter section enables the arrangement to stay much more interesting. If I just carried the bass the same kind of like aesthetic going the whole time through, you lose that moment of kind of just to take everything down between sections that enables you to start building it back up again. Let's talk about the drums really fast. There is a major giant kick drum that's driving this whole song throughout the verses and chorus. Sounds like this. One thing that I don't really like is when drum samples sound super samply. And what I did in this song to keep things interesting is I added an effects track underneath the kick that's it's the kick drum just processed a different way. I'm processing it with a lot of spring reverb and Brower motions, making the kick drum go back and forth, but just the reverb return of it. And it's giving this sense of motion with the song. Let me show you what it kind of sounds like with and without that. And you can see how it takes like an otherwise just like sample type of sound and it turns it into something much more interesting with movement. So this is kind of moving with the song, and because there's all this Brower motion movement on it, it kind of makes each reverb hit a little bit different and helps the bass kind of dance around a bit. And then we have spring reverb. I'll play this with the song really fast.
Late night, I'm turned up. Born raised, probably down sloss and wonder what I guess I'm Kenny Loft. And famous bitches DM me too often. Might sell TMZ my login. Tell her that I love her, never call her. Hennessy been clouding on my conscience. Pockets fat, I'm talking.
So notice how when that reverb is in here, it all of a sudden disappears from just being this like kick drum sample that's going the whole time to all of a sudden it's this kind of more organic sounding thing. And that's one nice thing about spring reverb is it can give you a very organic sound because it's not really like the same reverb of what it sounds like in a hall or a big space. It's more of like a tangible type of sound.
Born raised, probably down sloss and wonder what I guess I'm Kenny Loft. And famous bitches DM me too often. Might sell TMZ my login. Tell her that I love her, never call her. Hennessy been clouding on my conscience. Pockets fat, I'm...
The last thing I kind of did on the drums here, before we get to the hats, I just took vocal bender. Like, just because a plugin says vocal bender or vocal this or vocal that, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to put on a vocal. For the snare drums, or whatever these sounds are in this song, I put vocal bender on them just to change the pitch and kind of, put it in the world. Let's take a listen to that.
Oh, that back till you bust.
That clap snare thing sounded a bit too piercing to me before I processed it. So I don't really know what this is doing, but I just fiddled with it till it sounded cool and massaged it into the song. We're also doing just a little retro-fi on here as well. This is with and without. If you allow sounds to get too bright, it starts drawing a lot of attention to itself. Like, listen how when I remove this processing, all of a sudden you're gonna start focusing more on the claps as opposed to focusing on the vocal, which I wanna draw more attention to the vocal.
Late night, I'm turned up.
It puts the claps like right in front of your face instead of having the vocal there. So I'm using these tools to just push it back into the track. Now let's check out the hi-hats that we have here. Hi-hats are another thing that very typically will block vocals. I'm not a huge fan of that. So sometimes I'll use something like Brower motion just to kind of like move these sounds throughout the stereo field to give it a sense of like movement, but also while it's moving, it can kind of just be out of the way of a vocal. Sometimes if a hi-hat is just like panned a little bit to the right or all the way to the left, it just starts to feel asymmetrical to me. So by kind of moving it back and forth, it seems like symmetrical to me, and it just doesn't necessarily draw so much attention to itself as if it was just like panned to the right.
Late night, I'm turned up. I'm on too much that back to you.
So you can feel how like when Brower Motion is in, it kind of moves around the stereo field in this unhinged way that matches the rest of the song's aesthetic. I have on the stereo bus one of my favorite plugins, which is, boom, BB Tubes. And let me show you what that's doing. So I use this a lot of times. I have my own little preset that I just put on the stereo bus. And I use this to kind of, if I'm doing a mix and it isn't quite, crunchy enough, or I just wanted to have that little bit more overdriven aesthetic, or sometimes it'll saturate the mid-range a little bit to add a little bit more excitement, I'll throw this on the whole mix.
Forays probably down slossing. Wonder what I guess I'm Kenny Lofton. Famous bitches DM me too often. Might sell TMZ my login. Tell her that I love her, never call her. Hennessy been clouding up my conscience. Pockets fat, I'm talking Action Bronson. I need a shot. I might need insurance like a driver. Got too many bitches on my bumper. I'm a slut, ain't got no moral compass. She want me to beat, I'm knife one. The talking commas, put that on my mom.
And I'll just kind of play with that until I get an aesthetic of, that I'm searching for in my head. And I'm always tweaking this a little bit. What I love about this plugin is that it has this bass relief knob. And when you start saturating a song as a whole, a lot of times the bass doesn't necessarily play as nicely with that sound as the rest of the song does. So what you can do is just, pull this bass relief knob up a little bit. And then it's not focusing that saturating quality so much on the bass, and it kind of keeps like a clarity in the bass, but it starts driving the rest of the song.
Forays probably down slossing. Wonder what. Still fake. Late night, I'm turned up. I'm on too much.
So you can see with the bass relief knob pulled down, the whole song starts to get a little bit tubby and weighed down. And listen to how I peel this back, and it kind of falls into a happy place.
Late night, I'm turned up. I'm on too much that back till you bust. Turned up.
All right, so there we go. I want the major takeaway from this today to be taking this premise of trying new plugins that you've never used before and massaging them into your workflow. And that way you can keep your sound fresh, you can keep evolving, and it keeps things fun. So thank you for stopping by my studio, and take care.
Late night, I'm turned up. I'm on too much that back till you bust.